Um, I think it would be really important for us to kickstart this session by each of us introducing ourselves. I think it's always so important for us to kind of share with everybody how we self-identify. That gives everybody an opportunity to understand, our position and how our perspective is informed. And so I will kickstart with that. So yeah, my name's Dylan Sherman. I self-identify as a gender fluid white gay man who is university educated. English is my native language. But I'm also an immigrant. I'm calling in from Barcelona, Spain, and I am still learning Spanish. I have to say it's not very good at the moment. It should be a lot better. And yeah, so that's me. Audrey, how about yourself?
So, well, my name is Audrey Bon. I have a migration background. We came as refugees when I was the age of 5 to the Netherlands because of the inland wars in Suriname. I identify as a heterosexual cisgender Black woman. Um, and yeah, I work in the diversity and inclusion, and I focus also on inclusive language. So yes, that's me.
Great, thank you so much. And how about yourself, Michelle?
Help if I come off mute. So I identify as heterosexual, Black female, with Nigerian and Caribbean descent background. I am in ED&I within HMRC, and also the HMRC race co-chair for the race network.
Brilliant.
Rebecca?
Thank you so. Oh, I think you're on mute, Rebecca. We'll just give Rebecca a moment to see if she can get taken off mute. Otherwise, we will launch into the session. Right, okay. So once Rebecca has the opportunity to kind of come back in, we can give her the opportunity to share with us what she'll be bringing to this conversation. So I guess I kind of want to start off by asking each of you, Audrey and Michelle, what does allyship mean to you? And what does it look like in the workplace? So Michelle, would you like to kickstart?
Yes, I don't mind kickstarting. So allyship to me is reflecting and being self-aware of any decisions that I make, and also making sure that decisions that I make are diverse decisions, not just based on my own group or my own sort of commonalities. So within the workplace, that probably doesn't always translate. So when people are making their decisions, they're making decisions for others without really engaging or gaining insight into actually, developing the products or the processes, with a diverse lens on it. I remember somebody saying to me, as long as we've got diverse of mind, we don't need diverse of anything else. And it's not just about that, because even diverse of mind, you will only pick people like you in that particular group. So diverse of backgrounds is also very, very important. So if I'll pause there.
Thank you. And Audrey, how about you? What does allyship mean to you, and what does this look like in the workplace?
Well, to me, allyship is really broad, and it depends on the topic. But to bring it all together, allyship is the liberty, so the freedom that we give ourselves, that I give myself and other colleagues, to bring their best selves to work, right? To have the feeling that they belong in that workspace because it feels psychologically safe, to help others to thrive. Yourself also, but others. So you're working on yourself, you're helping yourself, and others just to be better, to give others opportunities in their work.
Yeah, thank you so much. Rebecca, are you able to? Oh, brilliant. Hi, Rebecca. Can you hear and see us okay?
Yes, apologies for the technical faults earlier. I believe I missed some intros. I'm Rebecca, the Senior Office Manager at Balfour Beatty Vinci. EDI is really close to my heart. I've been working in construction for 4 years now, and it's been a real goal to try and diversify the workforce, because construction is of a certain demographic. Majority of the workforce is male, over 40s, and white. And so in a few years' time, when this workforce will retire, we find ourselves in a skills gap. So to continue construction, especially in the UK, we need to kind of address that. So I'm an office manager by day, but I absolutely fulfill my role on a daily basis by working with our EDI manager on making sure the project is as inclusive as possible. Lovely to join Dylan, Audrey, and Michelle today to discuss allyship.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we were just discussing, what does allyship mean to each of us? So perhaps you could bring your perspective.
So I believe there are marginalized groups in most companies, and it's very hard for sometimes their voice to be heard, and that's where allyship comes in. So important that we have allies who may not have actually come across any obstacles in their life, but are willing to listen and understand and help these marginalized voices be heard. And then if they're in a privileged position, to help actually extend that to others and level the playing field.
Great, thank you so much. And I think that leads quite nicely into the next question we're going to discuss, the fact that allyship ultimately starts with doing that self-work, right? Self-educating yourself, growing your own self-awareness, so that you have the capacity, you have the knowledge to then take action and create opportunities to drive equity, both within our communities and our organizations, right? So, we do speak of allyship as a journey, which for many of us, especially, white men like myself, it does start in a place of fear, shame, guilt, helplessness, a plethora of these mixed feelings of discomfort, shall we say. So how can we move beyond this to make real world impact? I'd be curious to know what you think, Audrey.
So let me first unmute myself. So what you just mentioned are feelings, right? And that's where it starts, with the feeling of shame, fear, guilt, and helplessness that you just mentioned. And we can start by looking at those feelings. Where are these feelings coming from? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I having this feeling of discomfort? And often you will come to the discovery, I believe, when you take the time to look at yourself, that those feelings can come from biases, stereotypes, and prejudices. So check yourself. Why am I feeling this way? And then you need to use your mindset to move away from it, because those mindsets, they just do not serve you. An example that I would like to give is, I have many examples, but my father once noticed that I was treating someone differently. And he said, because he has friends from all different walks of life. It's my late father, because he already passed away. And he said, sometimes we treat people unfair because we have certain biases, because someone told us about a certain person, or because we have a certain thought about how people from a specific cultural group are supposed to behave. Well, it's not that way. Get to know people by yourself. Do it through your own experiences. And that's something that I've taken with me in my work. So when I approach other people, I make sure that I do it from my experience with that person. So really get to know people. And then you can move beyond the bias. So educate yourself by communicating, interacting with people that you want to work with, or the people that you would like to have.
Thank you, Audrey. What are your thoughts, Michelle?
I agree with a lot of what Audrey said. Shimi's nodding away there. It is your reference point. Not many people do recognise their reference points. I recognise mine, and I was adamant that when I had children, that I wanted them to have as diverse groups of friends, experiences that I didn't have, because I had my mother's reference point. Things are happening in life where people then influence that onto their children. I was one of those products of that. So if I'd continued believing what my mom had instilled in us as a child, I would be part of the discriminating against others. So what I've actually done, I've sat down and had those uncomfortable conversations with my mother. She was closed at the beginning, but that repetitive messaging, conversations, and having those uncomfortable conversations, she became to expect, well, I'm going to talk to her about it. I've changed her mindset and how she thinks about things and others. And sometimes it's derived from cultural, it's derived from beliefs. And so I have to recognise that. So I do agree with that self-education, but I also do agree that I want to educate others in having that uncomfortable conversation to explain to them why what you've said is not right because of this. Have you ever thought about it that way? And I will continue to do that. So that's where I am at with that.
Yeah, I, like you say, I think it's really important to kind of get that balance right. You know, one, Audrey, it really is about staying curious, right? Asking yourself, why does this make me feel uncomfortable? Why am I having this reaction? Once you understand that, then yes, your self-education, your self-awareness grows. And then, as you've just said, Michelle, right? It's about educating our peers, right? Whether that looks like calling in or calling out. Of course, this is a whole different debate on its own. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We should be educating and engaging and challenging others. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on this?
So all those lists of emotions that you listed, I think first of all, people should be completely okay to feel those and not feel ashamed. It does make you vulnerable to admit that, but I think you really need to commend people who put the hand up first of all and say, actually, I don't know about this. I need more information. I'd like to learn, and you should celebrate the curiosity. If people are asking it, it's coming from a place of them wanting to learn and educate themselves. So yes, own those feelings and admit them, and then be honest. Hold some honest conversations with people. So we've recently campaigned at our company to include pronouns in people's email signatures, and I would quite like to aim one day get to a point where we introduce our names, our roles, and then we follow up with, oh, my pronouns are these, as part of everyday conversation. But a lot of people, surprisingly, are unaware of actually, gender neutral or non-binary, gender fluid. So when this campaign was launched, I actually had a lot of questions asking me what even was the campaign. So it's not being afraid to have to start the conversations and just admitting that actually, you don't know and you want to know more.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, there is no shame in having those feelings, right? acknowledge them, recognize them, and do something about them, right? So we've kind of looked at, I guess at the individual level, now the personal level, doing that self-work that we've all kind of touched upon now. I'd like to take the conversation maybe broader to organizations, for example, and particularly leadership. So my question is, how can leadership craft spaces for allyship to thrive? So, Michelle, I think you touched upon planting those seeds over and over again. It is going to be a lot of repetitive, I have to plant the seed. It's not just a one. So what can leadership do? How can they craft spaces to make sure that allyship has that fertile ground to kind of take off, grow, and thrive?
Do you want me to come in? For me, I'm hearing people talk about fatigue. So not treating this as a project. It's not a project. This is there to be embedded. This is what we want our environment to look like, and to be fair for everyone. A good place for people to thrive, for their skills and everything to be recognised, and that's utopia. So I do feel sometimes in the organisation that not everyone's going to believe that. I accept that not everyone's going to believe that there's a problem, but it's, for me, making the organisation uncomfortable for those discriminative behaviours. That's one of the things. Repetitive, it's going to have to be a repetitive message, unfortunately, because to keep it going. And so what if you're fatigued until we get the message that right and embedded into BAU that it's not acceptable to discriminate others. It's not acceptable for only certain groups of people to thrive and others not to thrive. So that's how, and it's that accountability part of it. I mean, I've been in a lot of challenging conversations about who's taking ownership, who's accountable for this. We are all accountable for this, but the organisation is accountable for this to ensure that and safeguard the people that work within it. So that's how I look at it, and that's how I approach it. And I don't want to start every conversation about equality, diversity, inclusion. I'm just asking that when you're making your decision, when you're looking around your environment, can you honestly say that that is reflective of society? Can you honestly say, well, if I gave Audrey the promotion and didn't give the other 5, that I actually applied an equal lens when I made that decision? So that's what I look at the allyship, and I will do the reverse mentoring, use different tools and elements to get people on board to understand and open their eyes and have a different lens on it.
Yeah, that accountability piece, I think, that's been a very strong theme that has emerged throughout the day, right? Accountability, transparency, that has to be core, right? And that role modeling, that is so vital for our leaders. Rebecca, coming to you, how do you think leadership can craft spaces for allyship to thrive?
We need 100% buy-in from leaders. I've seen both sides where we have leaders who are really passionate and they really drive, initiatives, and the passion comes across. And when you've got passion, you've got motivation, and that they're gonna, run with it, not just do the talk, but actually, do the walk. The other side, you've got leaders who are being told to make it as part of their agenda, and really it's forced to the wayside. I think leaders really do need to, first of all, get on board and actually believe in the benefits. They need to be able to see the benefits. Unfortunately, a lot need persuading. But there are so many benefits that aren't just tied to company profit. They're linked to well-being of your staff, retention, creativity. So in order for the spaces to be created, you need initiatives at work. I mean, Michelle mentioned reverse mentoring. That's really good. I'm part of a program now for reverse mentoring, and never would I have had a chance as a female working mum, Asian, British born, to actually get across what my everyday working life is to someone on the executive board. And my executive that I've been paired with has learned so much. I think normally executives don't usually have an opportunity to talk to people like me, and that's provided the opportunity for him to learn about what my working world is like, and it's eye-opening for him. Yeah, and vice versa. I've learned a lot of what he goes through, and it's important to understand each other, and leadership need to be more approachable and get involved and actually be on the ground, I believe.
It's great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of that reverse mentoring program. It's great that you are getting so much from it. And I think, yes, the leadership buy-in is essential. But I think for so many leaders, there is this fear that paralyzes them into doing nothing, because cancel culture is such a big thing, right? So if I say the wrong thing and I'm a CEO, I say the wrong thing, it is going to have such an impact on my business, right? On my bottom line. And for many people, that's how they'll see it, but they just don't say anything at all. So this cancel culture, or the role of social media, for example, yes, it kind of returns the power to the people, because, we can call out when organizations are not, their actions are not speaking to their values. But it's a double-edged sword, if that's the correct term to use here, in that at the same time, it's paralyzing people. So Audrey, I'd like your thoughts on this in terms of cancel culture. How can leaders manage this, or how do they navigate this, this very dangerous terrain?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I do agree with what Michelle and Rebecca just mentioned about the accountability and the buy-in, and also the mentorships coming from leadership. But we need to understand also that leadership doesn't only come from the top. We all have a responsibility. We are all leaders. So we all need to take the lead. It is that the top is responsible for leading by example. So also when it comes to cancel culture, they lead by example, and they show how everything has to be done within the company. If a leader misbehaves, they open the door, especially when it comes to cancel culture, that it's okay in the company to behave this way. It's okay to say the wrong things. It's okay to push other people out. It's okay to give people that perhaps don't even deserve it, but that person is my friend. And if someone says something wrong, I will cancel you and I will make sure that you move out of the company. Or all these things, we need to take into account that leadership is not only coming from the top, it's everyone. But the C-suite, so the top management, they take the lead. And just because we are all now, in most of us or in a mature body, doesn't mean that we have finished learning. It doesn't mean that we're already there, right? We learn and we keep raising ourselves through the influences of other people. Cancel culture is also an influence on other people in organizations, inside and outside, because allyship isn't only something that happens within companies. Allyship is internal and externally. It's your customers, it's your suppliers, right? That's also where allyship happens. They help people in the company to thrive. When we started speaking, I already mentioned that allyship is really broad, right? There are so many forms of allyship. Your leader, your manager, because I like to use the word manager. Not leadership means that you're leading people. I like to use the word manager because your manager is guiding you. That person is leading you to make sure that you can do your work the way you have to do it, to make sure that you bring the right message outside of the company and inside of the company. That person is responsible for how you do your work. So to come again, I say it's internal and external. Leadership is internal, external. Allyship is also internal and external. To help your colleagues, to help yourself. But even also your manager, just like Rebecca said, her experience with her manager, coming to understand where they come from, the things that they experience, right? So all of these things are important. But to come back to your question, which was cancel culture, because I'm drifting off, which was about the cancel culture. Leaders need to lead by examples. Managers, they lead by example. They are responsible whether there is cancel culture inside a company. They are responsible for a psychological safe environment.
Absolutely. Michelle, would you like to add anything, any thoughts, reflections to that?
Yeah, I was like nodding away. So I think I say the people at the top just not diverse enough in some organisations, but I also think that the element of the cancel culture is around their race confidence. So if they're not confident in talking about race, they're not confident because they've only ever been in that bubble there. So there's been examples of where advisory boards, for instance, things that have been the new thing as far as I'm concerned. So advisory boards are popping up to get a diverse set of decision makers in the room from the lower grades. That is a tactical step. It isn't a long-term strategy to embed this. So it still keeps leadership who are not diverse at the top still making no decision. So the next step would then be to how do we get the leadership at the top more diverse? And this comes with building their race confidence, actually understanding, not keeping this closed sometimes group of people we used to call it the boys clubs, we don't call it that anymore, but I have just done it anyway, so sorry. But I hope you understand what I'm actually sort of saying. So it is building that race confidence, and it is the responsibility of the top layer to ensure our psychological safety. But then you've got people, junior grades, that are scared to speak up, depending on where their journey is, because in fear of tainting their career. So it's top and bottom issues and challenges. But when you come to a point, say for me, I haven't got that fear because I'm happy to act as a challenge function, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And with no fear of, okay, my career is going to be damaged. I've been there, I've been sent to Coventry, and I've come through the other side. So now I'm at that side, which is I will challenge you if your policies and your guidance, your decision making is not inclusive. So
yeah, and that power dynamic is, I think that conversation always comes up when discussing allyship. People will always say, oh yeah, but I'm only little old me, like I'm not going to challenge my boss, or I don't feel comfortable challenging a senior leader or whoever it is, whatever the situation is. And I think that really highlights the power, not the power, sorry, that's the wrong word, the need to have allies who are upstanders, not bystanders, and like you say, can then stand by that person and say, do you know what? You're totally right. I agree with you. So how can I help? What do you need me to do?
Yeah.
And if that person says, well, actually, do you know what? I'd really appreciate it if you could have a word with them. Well, there we go. Go and do that. So thank you so much. So a few questions have come in to us, which I would like to touch on. So a question from Chikere. What advice would you give someone who wants to start on their allyship journey? Who would like to share their thoughts on that?
Well,
I go. We'll wait at the same time. Go ahead.
Just a small mention. I believe she's already started her journey by wanting to already be an ally.
exactly. I agree with Rebecca. Any person that is present today during this summit started their allyship journey because you are curious and you want to know how to take it further. You want to know where to get started. You want to hear what other people have to say about allyship. I think another way for you to become ally or to start your journey is by practicing your voice also. Many things we haven't matured to the person that we are today from the womb, and now we're sitting here, right? Anything that we have done till now, we have practiced, right? I always say we go through a school of life. And in that school of life, we practice in anything that we do. Sometimes you might be scared to ask people about their backgrounds, if they're from the LGBTI community, people who are Black, if you want to ask them about their race or anything else, people being a mom, being a man, being a woman, any part of their intersectional identity. Bring your childlike curiosity and ask questions. Communicate with people. It's just that simple. And you might be scared. You might feel your heart racing in your throat. You might feel your blood gushing everywhere. Like, oh my God, I'm so nervous because I want to grow. I want to know something. But don't. Those are feelings, they will pass. As soon as it comes out of your mouth, you ask your questions, the feelings will pass. And you might make mistakes, and that's all okay. It's okay to make mistakes. For the person on the other side that you're communicating with, who wants to be an ally, so from your end, wanting to know, ask your question. The other person on the other side, you have the liberty to answer those questions or not. You have the liberty to teach other people, but do know that that person came to you from a point of vulnerability to know. So give them a chance.
I love that, Audrey, that idea, you framing allyship as a practice, right? We're never going to get it right all the time, and that's okay as long as we're open to that learning. Michelle, what were your thoughts in terms, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their allyship journey?
So the couple of things I picked up and I totally agree with, it's be curious. Don't be afraid to have that uncomfortable conversation, because the more you have the conversation, you become less fearful. I'm still learning. I don't know every culture. I don't know everything. So I'm a curious person, and I would have that conversation. If it's not, make sure it's not coming from. It depends where it's coming from. It's the intent of why you're curious as well. You need to be thinking about. And for me, it's not approaching it as the person, looking at the person as a victim or incapable. They're not a victim and they're not incapable. They're just that the process was not designed for them. So just have that kind of those conversations to understand exactly, these set of the way you've mapped your language, the way you talk, the way you write in an organisation. It's only had one lens on it, and that sometimes can be an obstacle for others. So really, it's not about somebody being incapable, and race doesn't equal incapable. So it's just having that conversation. And just coming from a curious but unafraid, and don't be bogged down with any privileges that you've got. recognise them and use them. But don't be bogged down and take it as a criticism. Just don't be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that also brings up the question, many may misunderstand allyship as saviorism. Oh, I'm white, I've got plenty of privilege, I'm going out there, I'm going to help people. It's two different things, right? Allyship versus saviorism. Saviorism is self-serving. You're doing it to make yourself feel good that, you're doing something for someone. Allyship is so much more. I don't know, Rebecca, do you have any thoughts or reflections about, this blurring perhaps of boundaries between allyship and saviorism?
So EDI, the whole world of EDI can be very scary because there is so much terminology that actually is quite baffling to people new to the area. Such as saviorism, allyship. So on a practical level, I think just read. There's a wealth of resources out there, TED Talks, articles, reports. Equality leaders themselves have like a information hub as their resources on their website. Just get reading, and that will kind of help with your journey in coming across topics and terms and understanding. And then maybe in a work sense, find like-minded people who are just as keen as you. Set up ERG. And then I think the biggest thing is if you see any injustices in your workplace, the best thing as an ally is to speak up and point it out and improve any processes that seem to be biased.
Thank you. Audrey, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I did have something that I wanted to add, and that's additionally to what Rebecca and Michelle said, is that do not be afraid, because whatever that it is that you want to do to be an ally for another person is for the greater good when you want a more inclusive environment. So you can ask people what it is that they need, and then you know whether they want you to be an ally. If you want to give people unsolicited advice, you can do so, because it will give people a fresher insights. But most importantly, don't be afraid to use that voice of yours. You have been given a voice. You can speak, right? You have your vocal cords, use it. Just like Rebecca said, don't be afraid to speak up for other people. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Do understand that if you do not speak up at the moment that something happens, it can be that at the moment that something happens, you want to give other people the space before you act as an ally for them. So you can speak in and get people and ask them, like, what is it that you need from me, that you want me to help you out next time? How can I help you? How can I be your ally? Don't be afraid, because you're doing it for your company. Some people need to understand that if you're working in a company, especially if you're working full time, that means in the Netherlands, you're working 40 hours in some companies. You need to understand that 33% of your time in a week that you are alive, that you are breathing. You want that space to be safe. So please speak up. Speak up for yourself, speak up for others. Ask them what it is that they need. If they say, okay, it's nothing that I need, then it's nothing you can do. Don't force yourself upon other people. But at least make them aware that I want to be your ally. And whenever you need me, I am here.
Can I add to that, Audrey? I mean, yeah, on the point of, speaking up, not being afraid, there's a few people who actually are not in a position where they can speak up for themselves, and they need someone else to help them. It might be that they're not even aware of the discrimination that they're experiencing. They are so bogged down with their daily job that they don't have the actual capacity to address the injustices on top of that. They go to work essentially to earn, and it's a lot of pressure and stress to then have to navigate the additional difficulties that they may be facing. And they may come from a culture where speaking up is actually frowned upon. I come from a culture where you've got to keep your head down, don't stick out from the crowd. And in finding my voice took a lot of years of retraining, and it was difficult. Even in times of racism, I found myself speechless because I didn't have a voice. So it's so important for those who can speak up. They need to, because you might find that the ones who are being discriminated against are struggling.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that with us. Michelle.
Yeah, just something that Rebecca said that sort of resonated in me as to how I found myself as the HMRC Race Network co-chair, was because of people not having a voice and allowing a platform for them to have a voice. So it's now a vibrant, growing network where the organisation uses to get that rich insight. But not everybody. So I class myself as serving my members. I don't serve the organisation in the capacity as a chair. But as Rebecca said, it's just recognising that certain people, certain cultures, they haven't got the courage to speak up. We enable them to have the courage, so they speak through us. We then act as the challenge function. And once they see that, some are empowered. So it's very important. It was great for Rebecca to sort of remind me of that, because it's an important point to make.
Yeah, affinity networks do amazing, a wealth of good for people, because it's a safe space for people to share their experience with people who potentially have also gone through the same thing. And you can share that in privacy without fear of being reprimanded, and it gives you the anonymity, as you pointed out, Michelle. Because then there's a channel that helped them to challenge and keep their identity in privacy.
Yeah. Let me package it, so I will package that. So I don't want it to just be moaning. Okay, this is the issue. Are there any processes or guidance that addresses that? No, they're not. So, okay, to the organisation, that is our challenge. You've got these, thousands of people within a network are saying this. So you now need to be challenged to look at your processes to see whether they're actually fair. But no, it's a power of the network is an important thing to help people to find their voices.
Thank you so much, everybody. And if I could just, I guess, switch gears, as it were. We've touched on it briefly. This very loaded word of privilege, and it makes a lot of people feel really uncomfortable. People get defensive, and all the rest of it. All of that aside, I think it's safe to say that all of us, in some way or another, carry certain privileges with us. We all experience and navigate this world with different identities, and each of those identities either carry with them privilege or they don't. So I guess my question is, as allies then, and where our privileges exist, how can we put those to good use to make our communities, our organizations, our spaces more equitable? And I'll open that up to the floor.
So I think there are still a lot of people out there who actually struggle to recognize they have privilege in the first place. A lot of people who are fortunate enough to not have gone through any kind of obstacles in life are unaware of the obstacles that other people experience, because to them, it doesn't exist. So there are still, I think, a lot of people out there who need to be more aware. And I think it all comes down to empathy. There is always an unheard kind of unseen struggle that other people have that you're unaware of. You know, on a day-to-day, you don't know what's happening in another person's life. So I think when, like you said, all of us have a different type of privilege, some with more than others. And I think it all comes down to essentially being kinder and empathetic towards your other fellow humans. And, you know, we all go through different things, and it's just understanding that actually there a lot of people have a completely different experience that you would never even have imagined. And it's first getting to know another person in order to help them.
Audrey, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Rebecca when it comes to having empathy for other people. But if you're in a position of privilege, you can move from empathy to compassion, which means, because empathy means I feel for you. I have a listening ear for you, and I feel for you, and I find your situation really difficult. Compassion means I'm going to take it a step further. So I feel your pain, I see your struggle, and now I want to help you step further by asking, what is it that you need from me? How can I help you to move further? Or even because we as people, we look at other people and we see their struggles. We have the outside lens. We see how they're struggling, right? Most of the time when in ourselves, we don't see it. So the internal struggles, we don't see it for ourselves, or we struggle and we don't know how to move away from it, or we don't know how to help ourselves to overcome those struggles. And when you look at other people, you see their struggles. I remember having colleagues who were struggling with certain positions, either with getting their work done properly, either with getting the block pipeline from their work, or either wanting to move in a promotion or whatsoever. If you have a privilege, you are in a situation to offer compassion, which is, what can I do for you to move beyond your struggle, right? To help you thrive, to succeed in whatever it is that you're doing. A listening ear can be enough, but privileged people can move beyond empathy.
Absolutely, thank you. And how about yourself, Michelle? What are your reflections on this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, once again, I agree. And for some reason, it just got me to think about the word equality versus the word equity. And so for equality, it's about, all of us, all of us starting on the same from the same place, really, to have that fair playing field. And then it's like the equity part is about giving people what they need to level the playing field. So that's what I think that's an ally for me. An ally is recognizing the privilege that they've got. I recognize the privilege that I got, and I see how I can use that to support others. So I will unofficially mentor, and I will officially mentor people. I will also coach people, and I've even gone into schools now. I've been asked to speak at schools to get people on the route of just to try to get their thinking from that perspective. And it's recognising that I've been afforded certain privileges in certain areas, and I've been denied things in certain areas, but being recognised, I'll just recognise that and reflecting on what my privileges are. And I keep going back, don't get bogged down with the word. It's just about recognising it and just saying, okay, if I'm here, and then, I drive a Hummer now. I don't really, but in my head, I drive a Hummer. And I drive around, and anybody there that needs help, I'll pick them up along the way and to help them, to empower them. And so I don't see anybody, it's not saviorism, just to empower them if I see that they're they're struggling in the organisation, that's supposed to be fair.
No, thank you. We have 10 minutes left, and so 2 more questions have come in from our audience. So if I could share these with you and hear your thoughts. So a question from Ritika. Essentially, she's asking, should we be picking one marginalized group that we feel most strongly about to become an ally? Or should we try and be an ally to everyone all the time? What are your thoughts on that?
I will very quickly mention intersectionality. I think lovely to have like a cause you're passionate about, but essentially all of us do tick several boxes when it comes to how we represent, what we identify as. So I think if you actually want to help one group, it touches on so many others. So I don't think you have to consciously try and help everyone, but I think if you see any kind of injustice to any marginalized group, I think it's our duty, all of our duty, to actually help champion the cause and fight for equality, because actually there will be a positive impact on all the others. So you give equality to one group, and the hope is that all the others are positively improved as well.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Yeah, I totally agree, Rebecca. So I don't think it's about trying to spread yourself thin and trying to get onto all different groups. You could be on one group, but any decisions or any thoughts that are coming within that group, just applying that lens broader to see if any initiatives are coming out of that group, could they be, is any kind of shared practices, any organisational learning that could be then spread across. So sort of like try to reduce the duplication of work, 'cause I hate duplication as it is. So it's that sort of just collective, just think about it broader. You may be just looking at, disability, for example, but then within disability, as Rebecca said, there's lots of intersectionality. You could be a Black female with a disability who's also, a part LGBT, who are also gay, who are all, there's could be a host of things from a socio-economic, low socio-economic, I can't even say the word, economic background, but just recognising that there are so many different nuances that makes one individual.
Thank you. And Audrey, if maybe I could come to you for the final question from our audience. Shelley is asking, what do you see as the key differences between an ally and an activist?
The key differences between an ally and an activist for me is just what it comes back to the question from Ritika, who asked, like, can you be an ally for one group? If you're being activist, you're being an ally for one group. You're still an ally, but you're an ally for one group. And I believe that we can be ally for multiple groups at the same time because of what Rebecca and Michelle just explained. We have intersectional identities. The moment that I am an ally for a Black lesbian woman who is disabled, who is a mother, etc., I am already an ally for various groups in one person. And it brings us also to the privilege, because being an ally is a privilege, but receiving allyship is also a privilege. That's one thing that I wanted to mention, to come back to the privilege point. But now shifting back to this point of an activist and an ally, and it's actually going back. An activist is most of the time is really focused on one specific thing, while being an ally for that specific group. But an ally as just being an ally you can be helpful for others. You can spread yourself thin, as Michelle explained. As Michelle said it so nicely, you can spread yourself thin.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of reflecting on everything that you've said, and I think, you know, just sitting here, my reflection on the difference between an ally and an activist is, you know, an ally needs to listen, learn, self-educate, etc., right? We've covered that, and I think everyone's told that. And then there's that, you've got to step that up, and now you have to translate that into action, right? So putting that privilege that you hold, that we all hold, to work, and rebuilding or dismantling the current status quo, which, let's be honest, is exclusionary, and rebuilding, redesigning, and that's activism for me. So I don't know if I can differentiate between an ally and an activist. But that's enough of me sharing my musings. We have 3 minutes left, and so I think I'd like to use these last 3 minutes to hear from each of you. What is the one thought, reflection, question, or action that you would like to leave our audience with today? So if I could just perhaps go to you first, Michelle.
So for me, what started me in my journey, and also listening to the conversations to this session, is the reflection. It's reflecting on your day-to-day decision making, and looking in the mirror and saying, all my decisions, were they an inclusive decision? And I think that's important, because that will also make you rethink. You'll either be yes, okay, same conclusion, but you'll make you constantly check yourself. I'll say that. So I think constantly checking yourself, because you can become complacent.
Thank you. How about yourself, Audrey?
Because I'm also using the term a lot, inclusive communication, there's one thing that I always say, and that is communication is everything, and everything is communication. So if you want to be an ally for other people, interact as much as possible as you can, gain fresh insights how to help other people. There is one thing that we need to understand, is that we are beings of awareness, right? We have the ability to foster awareness in order to help other people. So by doing so, you trigger, you open yourself as being vulnerable to others, but also vulnerable towards yourself. So I would say interact as much as possible with other people. Do it from out candor. Be open, be honest, and be respectful to other people. If they do not want your allyship, it's okay too. If they want your allyship, perfect. Help them as much as you can. Learn, teach yourself, educate yourself, ask for help if you need help. Don't be afraid.
Thank you. And how about yourself, Rebecca?
I think if everyone can go through every day and think, how can I uplift another colleague? I think already you'll be improving the working environment and culture in your office. So you could be in a meeting and there is someone who persistently doesn't get heard because they're shot down for an idea, or that they don't even speak up because there's no opportunity for them to take the floor. It might be a case where you actually give them that opportunity, address them in the meeting and ask, what do you think, and let them have that moment to shine.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's been such a joy to learn from you all, and thank you for bringing your voices and perspectives. That's our session that has come to an end. So thank you very much. To our audience, I hope you have walked away and gained a lot from this, and we hope to see you next time. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.